Okay, in one sense, this question is weird. They're asking about a word, right? So there's, it's kind of vocabby in a way, but the answer choices are long. And they're asking for the way it's used in two separate places that are kind of far apart. So that's weird. The SAT does not do that very often. But in many other ways, this is a perfect SAT question to highlight so many things that they do all the time. I love this question. It is a perfect model of what you should expect on the SAT and what you should be caring about as you do questions. So let me show you. Let me show you what I want to do here. First, we need to go to these lines and we need to make sure that we read a little extra. So we're going to use the +1 sentence rule just to get a little context. I don't know that it matters too much here, but whenever you're given a line reference, even if it's two separate line references, make sure you read a little extra. So when we go to this line, this first one here, so here's the word backbone. It says, the chemical formula of deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, is now well established. The molecule is a very long chain, the backbone of which consists of a regular alternation of sugar and phosphate groups. To each sugar is attached a nitrogenous base, which can be of 4 different types. 80% of that is science mumbo-jumbo. That is meant to scare you because you are not a scientist, and that is scary. You do not read or understand things like that very often in your everyday life, but it doesn't matter. What I see, and what I want to train you to see, is one word in here, regular. Why is that so important? Well, because all the sciencey stuff is not what they're going to be asking about, right? They're asking basically why are they using the word backbone? And so very rarely are we going to need to understand the science for the science passages or the history for the history passages. We're mostly going to need to know, like, what is the author saying in this particular moment, or what is his purpose? So here, they're just basically trying to tell us that the backbone of this molecule, this is a long chain, and the backbone is a regular alternation of stuff. I don't care that it's sugar and phosphate. I don't care that there's nitrogenous bases attached. I care that it's a long chain with a regular alternation of stuff. That is your dumb summary of what's going on, right? We don't care about the science. We care about the very, very dumb version of the science. Now, look what's going to happen when we go to the other line. So we're going to do the same thing. Here's the word backbone right here. The sentence before is in the previous paragraph, but that's okay. Adenine, for example, can occur on either chain, but when it does, its partner on the other chain must be thymine. The phosphate sugar backbone of our model is completely regular, but any sequence of the pairs of bases can fit into the structure. It follows that in a long molecule, many different permutations are possible, and it therefore seems likely that the precise sequence of bases is the code which carries the genetical information. Again, most of that is science that I don't care about. I care that they repeated the word regular, because that seems really, really important for my dumb summary, right? If they repeat it, probably matters. Main ideas are repeated ideas. So there's other stuff maybe that I could highlight that's understandable, right? There's any sequence of pairs can fit, right? I kind of understand what that means even without understanding the science. I don't really care about adenine and thymine, but something must happen with something else. Okay, there's a pair that has to be a certain way. And yeah, that's all I really care about. So now let's go to the choices, and we're looking to match our dumb version of events. I'm not going to reread this a million times to understand the science. My job is not to understand it. And if it matters, if there's more than one answer choice that I'm considering, I can go back and look at the passage again with those two choices in mind, right? Comparing and contrasting those two choices. But let's see what we have. Let's see if this matters. So choice A, only very long chains of DNA can be taken from an organism with a spinal column. Well, at no point did they use the word backbone literally here. So they're not talking about a literal spine, a literal backbone. More importantly, for an SAT purpose, phrases like only really scare me. They're strong words. So again, even if I didn't understand the science or the dumb version of the science, that word only would scare me. And that's another way to approach a lot of these SAT questions. If you don't understand the passage, you can get better at understanding the choices and the words that the SAT tends to use in the choices. Words that usually make things wrong and words that are usually okay. And so only is a word that usually makes things wrong. Not always, but often. And so that would scare me. And so there's a couple reasons, but choice A is wrong. Choice B. The main structure of a chain in a DNA molecule is composed of repeating units. Well, repeating means that something happens again and again. And regular means that something happens again and again, right? The regular things that you do in your daily life are the things you do every single day. Brush your teeth, take a shower, blah, blah, blah. So repeating and regular, let's highlight this, that's a pretty solid match. It's obviously not the same word. The SAT very rarely uses the exact same word in the choice that they use in the lines, but they stick pretty tightly to it. And so if we can get a dumb summary that captures the correct stuff, we shouldn't be surprised when those same ideas pop up in our choices. Now, is there anything else that we would need to test here? The main structure, well, a backbone is kind of the main structure, right? Because it's a very long chain. The backbone has things attached to it. We're reading that in line 3. So that seems to be okay with main structure. They're talking about DNA. There's nothing really else to analyze here. But let's go on, right? We shouldn't just pick B because it has that similar idea. We should really analyze all the other choices as well. Make sure we're not getting trapped. So choice C, a chain in a DNA molecule consists entirely, that's another strong word. Another word that without even understanding the passage would make me nervous about that choice. It consists entirely of phosphate groups or sugars. Well, here's where people get confused and think, oh no, I didn't understand the science. Well, phosphate groups or sugars, do I really need to understand it? Here, let me use the highlighter. Phosphate groups and sugars. Well, if you go to the lines, it says phosphate groups and sugars. Literally, the question you should ask yourself is, does it say anything else? Nitrogenous base. Do I know what a nitrogenous base is? Absolutely not. I'm an SAT tutor, not a chemist, okay? But I know that if something is entirely sugar and phosphate, then it has no way for it to also be a nitrogenous base. So, it seems wrong, right? And so that's why that word entirely is way more important to me than the words phosphate or sugar. Because I understand the word entirely, and I know that that's a problem word on the SAT. And I can go back and I can check and I can verify that that word entirely is causing a problem. But it doesn't require me to understand the chemistry of DNA in order to do that. Just what the word entirely means. Finally, choice D, nitrogenous bases form the main structural unit of DNA. Well, again, we're using some chemistry here. This doesn't seem to have any strong words, maybe main structural unit. That's something that doesn't jump out as being definitely wrong, but it has some meaning, right? So that's something that's testable. Is the nitrogenous base the main structural unit? Well, if I go back to line 4 or 5 here, to each sugar is attached the nitrogenous base. So the backbone is the sugar, and the nitrogenous base is attached to it. So it's literally saying the opposite. It's saying the sugar is the main structural unit, and the phosphate groups, I guess, but that the nitrogenous base is attached to it. So it's not the backbone, maybe it's like the ribs, I don't know. So there we go. B is the answer. And just to summarize why I love this question so much, it shows that there's multiple ways to get this answer. We could have gone at it directly, right? We could have said, oh, the word regular is in both of these line references, so it must be important, and the word repeating is in the correct answer, and those things mean the same thing, so we're going at it and we're saying B is right, okay? So that's one way to approach things. B is right. The other way is A, C, and D are wrong. And we did that too because we can. It doesn't take much longer. I know I'm kind of going on and on, but in the moment, you should be quick about this. And that's why we practice this, so that you can get faster at it. Because if you can chop up those choices and notice words like entirely and only, right? Words that we might otherwise ignore. On the SAT, those words matter. And if we can spot them, we can start to eliminate bad answers faster. And sometimes you will be able to do both, like we did here. You'll be able to find the right answer and prove the wrong answers wrong. But if you're having trouble with the reading section, it's probably because you can only do one of the two on certain questions and you're just not sure which one to do, right? Maybe you're trying to find the right answer, but you don't understand what you're reading. So obviously finding the right answer is going to be harder. And so what you should do is do the other thing, right? Try to prove the wrong answer is wrong. And most of the time, I think that's actually the better way, because the passages are going to be very dense, very scientific, very weird because they're maybe 200 years old. There's lots of things about the passages and the lines in the passage that can be hard to understand. But the choices are short, and we can chop them up, and most of the words in the answer choices are going to be understandable. So if you're having trouble with reading, shift your focus away from the passage and onto the choices. Try to prove answers wrong, and you'll be surprised how often you find the right answer just because it's the only thing left. That's process of elimination. That's the SAT in a nutshell. And great job, number 22, to kind of capture all that in just one simple question.